Welcome, 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 everybody. It is another great edition of the ATF Radio Show. Thank you for tuning in and joining us. Um, Shout out to the Chicago Bears as they're getting smashed on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. Um, our,
At home too, which is even more embarrassing. But that's a whole different issue. I don't care if it's preseason or not. You are not supposed to get beat down like this at home. So
well, the Buffalo Bills said there are no rules.
this is true. know, uh, Alex is watching this enjoying himself.
Oh, of course.
Why
I'm
did the
surprised he
Bills
isn't in here.
quarterback look like he drives NASCAR? Wait till
I
you-
mean, maybe that's what he does in the off season. Ooh.
So this is your birthday weekend, Cigar Snob. So
That it is. That it is.
coming up on 21 again. Is that correct?
Yeah, 21 for the 20th time.
There you go. There you go.
So, a little exciting stuff last night.
Yeah, the weekend festivities got off to a good start. I love that restaurant you went to yesterday. I got to check that place out. Maxine's on Shine.
Oh yeah, beautiful restaurant. Great people. They've been there forever. Uh, the guy and his wife have been together for like 30 years. She was actually the New York, the Miss World New York representative.
What?
Yeah,
All
Maxine.
right.
I forgot the last name, but
All right.
drinks are good. Food was amazing. I had some trout stuffed with crab meat, capers, and white sauce. It was just, man, it was great. And then I had one of Steve's favorites. Had a double of Martell Swift to commemorate the event, and then he made this special drink. It's some type of champagne and another type of like vanilla liqueur, and he called it birthday cake, and it literally tastes like a Publix birthday cake. So, and then of course we went to Coronas, had a cigar, um, then went to Steve's spot Tangeray's, listened to a little live music.
I'll never go to Tanqueray.
Didn't you tell me about Tangeray's?
I've never been to Tanqueray.
Oh, you just park over there.
No, I never park over. I park in the garage, but I've never parked. I've never gone to Tanqueray. You know what? What I have said before is that I've never been there. I should go there because.
Oh, I thought you said. Oh, it is actually.
It's a really good,
It's a great bar.
great bar.
Like that's actually, and don't look at me crazily, but that's the first time I've been to a bar in the United States. Like,
What? Huh?
I mean,
Hold on,
I
hold
grew
on.
up in the bar scene in Germany in the military, so. Wow. Yeah, I mean,
Who are you?
We got to do something about that.
That's I'm calling Cat.
I'm dead serious.
How you never been to a bar?
Unless you count like Fridays,
Man,
like an actual like neighborhood bar, like
where
yeah,
everybody
no,
knows
never.
your name.
No.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's where you get the best cheap drinks.
Well, now I know,
Love going to bars,
but
especially dive bars. That's my secret.
it was good. They had a great band last night. Um, and then after that, we walked out. And as I'm walking back to the garage with my lady, who do I see but Sir Shirts and Shoes himself with his
Tracking
lady friend.
I was there. I did a place for another cigar, and eating at Agave is ruled. So, what goes good with good Mexican food? Cigar.
Mexican toast.
Mexican Coke. Yep.
Not the kind you snort.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
I wouldn't know anything about that. You guys
I can confirm nor deny any of those statements.
The liquid is good. I would say.
Coca-Cola.
Oh, sorry. Wrong hole. Wrong hole.
That's what she said.
No, actually, she did. But anyway, going back to hanging out with Art last night. Had a good time. I only spent a couple minutes because I was ready to get home.
Good to you.
I will. And then I got to sleep in today. The kids got sent to their grandparents to be babysat, and then the lady was out opening her dance studio today, and I stayed at home by myself and slept till about 11 o'clock this morning. So,
We have a visitor, the local tobacconist, and of course Tony Marino from Cox Radio. How are you, man?
Great. How are you?
Miss Edgar,
Good to see you again.
How are you?
I have a question for you.
Welcome to Sharon. What's going on?
Oh no, nothing bad.
Not too much.
Good
I don't think.
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was,
What's your favorite cigar for celebrations?
For celebrations,
Yeah,
I usually go with one of the opuses.
I get one of those.
Mm.
Yeah,
How'd
I love my angel share.
oh, Angel Share. Okay,
I love my angel share.
Angel Share, and then I think my favorite's got to be the only opus I love is the Lost City X Lancero. Like that one.
Now the new Don Carlos anniversary is a really good one.
Is it? Okay, I'll have to try
The
that.
2021 edition is really good.
Okay, okay. Well, you heard it from the head tobacconist here at Executive Cigar Lounge in sunny Sanford, Florida. Um, come on by, grab some cigars. James is the mixologist on duty, and I'm sure Art's going to be here for a long time this evening. He's got his lounge slippers on, so it's going to be a good day.
why are you talking about my lounge slippers? What they do to you?
They were crafted. What you think? Steven's the only one that can catch shit on this show?
That's a first.
Crafted in China.
I mean, they're good for something.
But again, welcome Tony Marino from Billy BBO. Thanks for dropping back in.
Yeah, great to see you guys. Thank you very much for bringing me in.
Oh, thanks for joining us, sir.
What are you smoking?
I am smoking a Gurkha Dragon Lord,
Yeah.
one of my preferred Gurkha go-tos.
Gurkha man in the house.
See, I'm gonna make a statement here,
Here we go.
bro.
Just go, man. Do you, boo? Do
I'm not your fucking boo. Anyway, you know it's a good Gurkha when nobody really knows that cigar,
Yeah, that is true.
That is true.
because that's a cigar that I've heard about. Honestly, no, I don't think I've ever seen it other than like in a write-up. But that's how you know that a Gurkha is good, because everything else, well, I'm not gonna say everything else, but a lot of the stuff that they make is more gimmicky. I really love their Havana blend. I think that is one of the cigars, and I've told Art and Steve this, that is one of the cigars that I could say out of my top 5 non-Cuban cigars that I thought was a Cuban when I smoked it.
Really?
It is the Havana Legend, and in itself it's great, but the Lancero just blew my mind. Blew my mind.
As many Gurkhas as I've smoked, I honestly don't know that I've ever smoked that one. I was just talking to somebody else out in the other room. I really like the Gurkha Reserve line.
Yes.
That's the reserves are probably the best. I'll occasionally smoke the Gurkha Ghost, the Gurkha Dragon Lord. The reserves are probably the best, and then they have different levels
Of course.
the reserve, the
Right.
10 year, the 15 year, the 20 year. So I think when you get up to like the 20 year, it's like $20 a stick. So
Which still isn't a bad price, to be honest, when you look at the top tiers of cigar lines, I mean, you look at Padron, you look at Fuente, you look at Davidoff, you look at Oliva. I mean, they have great cigars, and I'm talking, to me, I would say these are everyday smokers, but they're still so good that if somebody gave it to me as a gift, I would be appreciative, no matter what the cost of the cigar is, because they're so good.
right,
But when you
Right.
get into those top tiers, like you say, Opus X,
yeah,
or the Little Hammer series from Padron, or the Millennium Blend, when you get to that level, that's when you really understand and appreciate blending.
Correct.
Because some cigars you smoke and it's a hodgepodge of different leaves and things
right,
like
and
that.
a lot of fillers,
Right.
stuff like that.
But when you get to that top tier and you're like the Davidoff Millennium Blend, I'm not a big Davidoff fan because I like full flavor. It's a milder cigar. Don't get me wrong, nothing against it. It's a great cigar for the person it's for. Now the Millennium Blend, on the other hand, is a cigar that it's a medium to medium full cigar. And the smaller the ring gauge in that cigar, again, like the Lonsdale Panatella Lancero sizes, I can smoke one of those and say, you know what, I'm not smoking for the rest of the day because I already know
Right, right.
nothing's
I
going to touch
agree
it.
with you on the Davidoffs, by the way. I mean, it's a fantastic cigar, but most of them are pretty mild. I had about a year ago, I don't remember which Davidoff it was, but it was $75. A guy that I know that has a lot of money and spends a lot of money.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, I just bought you this $75 cigar. Check it out.
Yeah, and that's the thing about, and we've talked about this before, cigars and prices. You can have a $10, $12, even sub $10 cigar that's a great cigar, and a cigar that's priced at a much higher price point that's not as good. When people give me cigars, don't tell me what it costs.
Right.
I could care less what it costs.
Right.
Because if it's a good cigar, it's a good cigar. If it sucks, it sucks.
Well,
I'm going to be honest either way.
So the guy that gave it to me, he specifically wanted me to know how much it cost
hmm
because he was, kind of flaunting his money around a little bit.
Yeah.
But that also sounds impressive, right? Whoa, a $75 cigar. And if he didn't tell me, I would have never known. I would have never thought it cost $75. I was like, wow, this is a really good cigar. But was it $75? Like you said, you can smoke a $10 cigar and really enjoy it, but you also know, even though you're enjoying it, you also know it's not the quality of a $20, $25 stick.
What you should have told them is that, oh, this is nice, but I only smoke Davidoff Oros, which is a $500
Okay.
cigar, or the Royals, which is a $100 cigar. Yeah, then challenged him a little bit.
Right, right.
But it's it's like watching a movie or going to a great restaurant. You'll hear all these reviews, but until you go see it for yourself or experience the cuisine yourself, you don't really know. So.
It's kind of like a steak, right? I mean,
it is.
A $20 steak, a $50 steak, a $75 steak. A lot of it is personal preference, even though it may be a much better grade of meat.
Yeah.
And it may be a lot more money. You might like the $20 steak.
You might. And there are some cigars that I have that I don't necessarily smoke often, but when I see friends of mine who have different palates, I'll say, oh, I've got something for you. And then they'll appreciate it and they'll smoke it and they'll enjoy it, more than I would, as opposed to a lot of the other things that I prefer or that Chair 4 Steve prefers or that the cigar snob prefers. So, but, thanks for coming back again, man. It's good to see you.
No, great. Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So, what did we decide today?
So, you gifted me this cigar, and I took a picture of it on Instagram and shouted out Aganor Salif. And Max at Aganor Salif responded. I was like, oh, this is the beginning of my birthday lineup. And he responded. So I told him, on our Instagram page, I was like, hey, thank you. I appreciate, the comment, appreciate the birthday wishes. So I told him that we would review the cigar today on the show. And I have to say, Nicaragua's back.
It is back.
I mean,
back with my uncle's hairline.
I mean, the first 3 pulls on this cigar are just knock your teeth out straight, just from the beginning. And I love that. I love a cigar that, from cold draw, you're like, okay, it's a little meaty, it's a little spicy. And then you light it up and you take those first couple pulls and you're like, oh shit, I should have warmed up a cigar before this. Because, I looked at it and it's, it's a great looking leaf and everything. I did not expect it to be so strong just off the beginning. Like I was with the Kill Bill 2 from La Polina.
Yeah.
That's a cigar that if you're not ready, it'll put your dick in the dirt. You'll be done. You literally have to take 2 or 3 puffs and rest that cigar. And I'm a big smoker, so I smoked it. And I smoked it half down and I was like, oh, this was a big mistake.
So you're like me. You enjoy a real full-bodied
Yeah.
cigar. A real cigar. I have a lot of, sometimes friends come over the house and they're not necessarily cigar smokers. Say, hey, let's sit out by the pool, smoke a cigar, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I always have to keep some mild cigars in the house for when people come over.
They can't
handle a real cigar.
Yeah, or not, or not yet. Their palate's not yet sophisticated enough because it's a progression. But in late 2019, Aganor Salif announced this limited production line that made its debut at the January 2020's Tobacco Plus Expo show in Las Vegas. And what we know now today is Supreme Leaf. And over the years, Aganor Salif, previously known as Casa Fernandez, has garnered a reputation for the quote unquote leaf, to your point about Nicaragua's back. So growing some of the best produced in the world. It's 100% Aganorsa Farms in Nicaragua. Packaging wise, it stands out because of its bold and vibrant color scheme, both on the box and box. And so it is limited release. So, and there are a few places that have it. As of today, as a matter of fact, executive announced that they would be carrying it. So they've got some right now too. So it's good to see. Good to see. So happy for them. But like you, I picked up that strength on not only cold draw, but as I'm into my first third, I'm picking up some coffee notes. I'm even picking up some black pepper on the retro hill too.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that hits you yet either.
Yeah, that's literally what I was about to say. On the tip of my tongue, all I'm tasting is black pepper, and I love it. As you know, I'm a pepper guy, so this is still for me a good first morning cigar.
Yes.
Like I could still drink this with a cup of coffee, and be ready for the day.
And I happen to be doing a little light humidor inventory, and I realized that I had one. One of them, I'm not sure if it was you, Chair Force, or you, Snob, gave me one, and I forgot I had it. So
The Casa Fernandez?
yeah,
Oh, that was yeah.
So
That was one. I mean, their lines in the late 2000s, early 2010s. I mean, they had some phenomenal cigars, and I think, which I always say, advertising dollars is really what gets a cigar to where it's supposed to be. Because they were a smaller company, they didn't do as much advertising in the cigar magazines and even events and things like that. But it's a solid cigar line. It. I put it up there to me, like it's with the Great Five. I honestly think so. Like they have some phenomenal blends that are just not known as well because people pick them up as a cigar. Like you said, you have friends coming over. People pick them up and it's a cigar to give away.
yeah,
But like I always say, try every cigar in that humidor because you will find hidden gems that you never thought possible. You never thought you'd like. You're like, oh, that manufacturer, no, I'm not into it. And then you try it, and then you find a new favorite. I mean, you introduced Steve and I to that Partagas 1845 Escuro. Like we had written off Partagas. We're like, if it ain't Cuban, I'm good. I don't want to take it. I don't want to try it because I told you for me, Dominican Partagas is very very oily. The wrappers are just. I feel like
they tend to be.
yeah, I feel like I did literally just put oil on my lips. I can't stand it. It's too much for me.
Tastes like
Not in my palate.
manufactured cigars.
Yeah.
to me.
It tastes like a
like a
machine roll cigar. It doesn't taste
Machine
like.
roll or just a mass production cigar where it just doesn't have any character.
But that 1845 Oscuro, to be honest, completely changed my whole view of Partagas now. And I'm like, okay, so going forward, anything that they put out, I'm gonna buy and I'm gonna try it out because that was like I told you, I was like, I don't know about this. I don't want to waste your money smoking a cigar because I'm gonna cut it and take 2 puffs and I'm not gonna like it. And now it's one of my favorite cigars to enjoy when we go out to have a cigar. It's mellow but strong. It's not overpowering. I can drink anything with it, and it doesn't mess up the flavor.
Speaking of 2 puffs, I had an experience that the three of us have had once before. We were at a certain lounge enjoying the cigar, and you took 2 puffs of one and crumpled it up in pieces right in front of us. And Chair Force and I looked at you
With disdain and disgust, yes.
mortification. And I said, well, give it a chance, And you're like, nope, there's too many great cigars in the world to do that. So
Winston Churchill said it. He said, life's too short to smoke a shitty cigar.
he did say
And I
that.
truly believe it. And my thing is, if your palate, and on the cold draw, if you're having reservations, that's a sign. Maybe your palate's not ready for that cigar, so put it back up and get something else. But if you're going to say, oh, I'm going to try it anyway, and you light it up, and me, I'm a cedar strips and matches guy. So there's nothing extra that I'm going to taste the first time I smoke a cigar because that's the only way I'll light it. So if I do find that I'm not enjoying it in the first 3 pulls, retro hails and push out, if I don't enjoy it, it's not for me. And that's just, and I've been smoking for 22 years now. I've been smoking for more than half my life. So at this point, it's like, yeah, if my palate, I know my palate. I already know this is not going to be a cigar for me. And I'll do it. And I'll do what I always tell people: go to a different establishment, buy the same cigar, go on a different day, and then try it again. I always say try a cigar 3 times in 3 different shops because it could have been just the shop's humidity, the way they take care of their cigars. It might not necessarily be the actual cigar itself. It may be that you go to another establishment and you try it and you're like, man, I love this. So always try, and that's the 3 strikes rule. Always try it 3 times, but make sure it's from 3 different locations. Me and Steve have had that conversation. He does the same thing. If he doesn't like a cigar at one place, he's like, okay, I'm going to go somewhere else and try the exact same cigar just to make sure that it's not the cigar itself. Maybe it's the way that they've humidified. Maybe it's brand new and they just put it out, and it's under humidified, or maybe it was in the sun on a UPS truck. They just put it out and it's saturated. You can't keep it lit. You're not enjoying it, and there could be a myriad of reasons. So always try it 3 times, I say, and then from 3 different locations, because that will give you the litmus and say, okay, this was okay here, this was okay here, and then I went to the third one. That might be the tiebreaker.
How long it's been on the shelf and how they stored it, definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Definitely affect the cigar.
Well, this cigar, I beat you. You crumbled that one up in 2 puffs. This one I crumbled up in 1, just because I couldn't do it. And,
Yeah.
And you talk about the aging process. There was too much of ammonia in it, so it hadn't been aged properly or with enough time. So I just couldn't do it. So and I went on and lit up a Opus X Angel Share.
Hmm. And to
I
be,
smoke a wide variety of things like you guys probably do.
oh yeah,
But,
You see my case over there.
I mean, I kind of walked in on the conversation with you, saying Nicaragua's back, and I'm big on Nicaraguan cigars and Nicaraguan tobacco for sure.
Absolutely.
and
When it comes to the strike rule for me, um, unfortunately, over the years, I didn't have good litmus tests in regards to what made some of them really, really bad, like humidification, over humidification. It's oftentimes, if you think about it, if you don't have a good control, you don't have a good idea of makes what humidification is doing to the cigar. Now, granted, I'm sure that Fernell will say the same thing. Um, it has a generalized taste to it when it's over humidified. But I just bought a box of cigars and I ran a test to over humidify it purposely just to see what they are. The case that's in my car sits almost always at 80, and 80 is way too high. So I would put cigars in there, and I would put them in there, and I left one in there. I let it sit in the car with it for days, just to try to see what it tastes like, because I know how good it tastes. This is a 6-year aged cigar, like not at a manufacturing plant. It's literally been sitting in somebody's shop for 6 years. So, and it has all the signs of a cigar. So I know for a fact what quality I'm getting, and I've smoked enough of them to get an idea of what it's supposed to taste like. So, given that this is like 12, 13 years down after smoking for that long, and smoking cigars, I'm like, yeah, it's humidified, whatever, But this gave me a completely different philosophy on it, because now I have a scientific mentality about how I'm evaluating what this tastes like. And the thing that I came to, I smoked one Wednesday, was that it was over humidified. First of all, the construction is so wet, it's holding the tobacco together, so you can't smoke it. You have to draw harder. And the first thing I noticed, I started getting a headache because I had to draw too hard. The second thing is that people worry about it being really, really dry, but I kind of feel, and Fernell's the same way, I feel that on the dry side is the best side than close to over humidified. I'd rather it be borderline dry than being like optimal humidification. Solely because when you're smoking that cigar, here's a good example too. Think about, even if you don't like them, you do like them. Cuba has kind of got that playbook of, you don't put it in cellophane, you let it sit in this normal, natural environment. It sits in a box. As long as the environment isn't under humidified to the point that it crumbles the cigar, it's good. So when you smoke it, you have that dry flavor that you get. And honestly, tobacco tastes better when it's slightly dry, because you actually get to pull more floral notes out of it. So when I burned the cigar, zero of the flavor that was supposed to be there was even there. So literally, you could have taken a Behike, over humidified it, and it would have been a trash cigar, easily, based on this mentality of testing it and seeing what it tastes like. You over humidify it. This is like supposed to be the creme de la creme of cigars. It tastes like crap. It would have not tasted good because I couldn't taste the spice in it. I couldn't. And the weird thing is, I got over a hyper amount of peppering. Like this cigar wasn't even that peppery, but it was very peppery on the humidified there. You can't taste the floral notes. You can't taste the hay, the graham cracker stuff that you're supposed to kind of taste in it. That you may not necessarily notice it, but you notice this don't taste like it used to. And that's one of the reasons why I tell people all the time is just grab it, touch it. If it's squishy too much, let it sit out, let it do its thing, and then try it. You want to give a cigar its best opportunity to be great. And that's the reality of it. Unless you just are a guy that just grabs the biggest stick and smokes it, or grabs something that somebody just hands to you all the time, you're not really getting a good idea of what makes cigars great. It's a process. So when you get it and it gets that hardened kind of flavor, that when it gets kind of hard and it's slightly soft, that's to me that's like
Pretty
right
hard.
there. That's premium. You're good. You're ready to really burn that and smoke it. And if you have that over humidified, that sogginess to it, first of all, you're gonna have to light it a lot. Second of all, it's just like if you go to like Ybor City,
Yes.
when they have some of the shops that are out, they will tell you if they think you're a cigar smoker, hey, let this sit. It's green, it's not ready, but it's gonna be ready. Perfect example. One of my favorite places, Long Ash Cigars. You go there, some of the stuff is gonna be green, and stuff you're gonna see in a newspaper that is like bonded up and everything on the top shelf. That stuff is green. It's not quite ready yet. So those are great cigars to just let them sit in a not overly controlled humidified environment. Let them sit somewhere where they won't lose an excess amount of humidity. And you let them go through their time. And if you age those, because when you get the ones that's on the shelf that's ready to smoke, they're pretty good. But the ones that age, they're like phenomenal. And that's kind of that process in aging. Because one of the ones I smoked for my birthday, the Boulevard there, I told you guys I had that number two. It's been sitting in my humidor for 3 years, and it's just been sitting there. And it went from soggy to slightly soggy to wet, back to kind of or not soggy, but back to dry, and then soggy again. And it finally started drying itself out a little more. And when I grabbed it, it was like almost a rock. And I thought, well, I look at it, it's like, nah, it's still good. And so I lighted it and I smoked it. And when I say you taste everything they wanted you to taste in that cigar, you taste everything. And even if you don't have the strongest palate in the world, you would have tasted it. You just wouldn't know what it was.
So, what are we pairing this with? Because I can already tell right now, I would definitely pair this with the Uncle Nearest.
I was gonna say Uncle Nearest. To go back to Steve's point, what I wanted to say is it's very simple. Over humidification, to break it down, let's break it down using alcohol. That's like having 10 ice cubes in a glass, and you're used to drinking something neat, and you pour it over 10 ice cubes.
Diluted.
It's gonna melt the ice. It's gonna water down the drink, and all of those flavors that you taste, even on the back of your throat, on the back of your palate, even drinking, they're gonna be washed away because it's like you said, it's diluted. So it's the same thing with the natural oils and the natural flavoring of the tobacco that they've blended. You put water into it, and it dumbs it down. And the problem is with some of that is when you over humidify, sometimes even when you try to take the humidity out, the cigar's ruined. And people are like, oh, if I just let it sit for a while, it'll be okay. If you let it sit for out in the correct conditions, you have to remember, like my humidor is at 69 degrees humidity all the time because, like Steve, like you said, it's just that drier humidity for me gives me so much more flavor. And like I don't usually smoke a new cigar with anything. I'm drinking ginger ale because I'm still a little dehydrated and hungover a little bit. But
Birthday weekend.
yeah.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You mentioned smoking a cigar, with your coffee.
Right.
That's another thing. A lot of what
It's
you're,
old school.
but a lot of what you're going to get out of the cigar
Is in the coffee.
comes with what you're drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Now, personally, I tend to smoke cigars at night after work, so I'm going to be drinking bourbon.
Well,
But occasionally, if I'm smoking a cigar with coffee, I might want to smoke a different cigar with the coffee than I would with the bourbon.
absolutely.
There you go.
So, when I first got here today, when I first came in today, I had a cappuccino. this cigar, and if I was smoking this cigar later on with some bourbon, it's going to taste a little bit different, feel a little different for sure. I think most people tend to drink liquor and smoke cigars, but really cigars go best with coffee.
Or and actually one of my Cuban friends taught me this too. Coffee without sugar, and you get like 2 squares of dark chocolate, and that's another thing. And I'm not a fan of dark chocolate because it's so bitter,
But it helps the palate.
but it bitters down my palate so that
Right.
those sweeter notes and those other notes really pop out of that cigar on my palate because my palate has now been dumbed down and it's bitter. I'm like, ah. Then I smoke the cigar, and now I understand why he does it because it pulls so like drinking red wine when you're smoking a Habano cigar, a peppery stick. It really brings out those floral notes that you would normally smell and taste as if you're in a garden. So the pepper is still there, but you get kind of it's like walking in a flower shop. You get that fresh aromatic taste and feel.
Right.
So,
What you're drinking is definitely going to affect your palate, which is going to affect the cigar.
mhm,
If you got to remember that too, like you said, you got to remember what you're actually consuming, what you consumed before, when you take in consideration. Especially if you're going to be nitpicking a cigar. If you're just going to smoke a cigar and you just kind of want to enjoy it,
that's
it kind of
fine.
matters, but doesn't matter because at the end of the day, you kind of are not going to say, I'm never going to smoke that cigar again. But if you're going to try a cigar, and it's just like I gave one of those cigars I gave you guys that I got in that box, I gave it to one of my managers in my building, and he's a cigar smoker, but he's very particular, and it's more so that he's one of those I don't smoke all the time, but I
Mm,
like cigars, and he goes on a Zoom with him and his brother, and they smoke together. And I told him, it's a good cigar. That you'll like it because you're going to put yourself in a position where you're going to be able to enjoy all of the cigars. That I guarantee you, is going to blow your socks off. And he smokes it, and he's like, "That was a really good cigar." I was like, "Yeah, but the problem is that I don't. I want to forewarn you when you go and buy this in the shop, it's not going to taste like that because this has gone through a lot of process to get to where it is now. But something like that, that's what you're going to look for. So when you do get in that environment, you start talking to people about what's what aging does or what matters about aging. When somebody says, "Oh, I had this cigar that's been aging for like 4 years or 3 years," that's what you're looking at. You're seeing some of that strongness mellow itself back out because this is, I mean, literally, you could have gave that cigar to anybody and they would sit and smoke it if it was humidified properly and it was dry enough. If they smoke it, they'd be like, "This is
you're gonna fall in love with it.
it's amazing." Like, and the thing is, if you go pick one off the shelf, it's not going to taste nowhere near like that because you're going to get so many floral notes. Like a more of a cedar. Because see, the thing I usually look for when I look for humidification or aging is how close does it come back to cedar. Because I think a lot of cigars have that somewhat cedar taste to it, but when you get to some of the full ones, that starts dissipating because of that strength that you have in it.
Correct.
But that's my reason why I'm in love with Cuban stuff. And not supposed because of how hard it is to come by, but I like Cubans because they really something about either the process of sitting in cedar or the tobacco itself. It has a lot to cedar, and I love the way cedar smells. Like even my fence, when it rains, that smell of cedar in my backyard, I could sit out there all day because I love the way cedar smells. And when you smoke it, when you smoke a cigar that has a cedar taste to it, that's that like woody taste that doesn't taste like oak necessarily or like smoked barbecue. It has a very floral smell to it, so you kind of enjoy it more. And I think as men, we typically don't think about floral, but floral is a lot of times what makes us like some cigars because we have that almost naturist taste to it. So that's
Well,
what
I haven't been smoking cigars for 20 plus years, like your partner mentioned, but when I first started, I actually started smoking cigars with vanilla cigars. A friend of mine that really got me into cigar smoking maybe 15 years ago or so, all he smoked was vanilla. And that's how I started smoking cigars with vanilla. And then when I started going to cigar stores and cigar lounges, people were like, "That's not a real cigar," So I started expanding my horizons a little bit. And now I would probably never smoke a vanilla cigar, but that's how I started out. And
It's a
for people,
progression.
right, and for people that are just starting, because I talk to people all the time, especially younger people, like, "Oh, I want to get into cigar smoking, but I don't know anything about it." And people can start with like a coffee cigar, a vanilla cigar, a chocolate cigar, and kind of ease their way in, because for most people, if you're not a cigar smoker and you smoke a cigar like this, like what I'm smoking now, or what you guys are smoking now, that's not a beginner cigar.
It's not. It's not. It's definitely a progression. And then you see even the progression amongst manufacturers like Jonathan Drew. He made his songs originally, with the with the Java and the Manatee and
Right,
others.
right.
And then he moved over and then developed the Ligas and the others, and then increased his profile exponentially. Absolutely.
You just kind of want to. Only thing about flavor and infused that I always tell people is if you want to not graduate as if you're beneath, but if you want to move into the regular cigar world, avoid berry, because there's nothing in a natural cigar that you're going to get a berry flavor. Almost nothing. I mean, I've tried a plethora of cigars, and I've yet to find a cigar that really closely ties to any berry flavor.
Right.
But
right.
vanilla is great, and the reason why I think a lot of people who smoke vanilla or coffee, and they're going to get into the regular cigars and they're going to love them, is because all that is doing is mellowing out a very young cigar that has had zero time to age, and it is not the best tobacco. A lot of times, if you strip that vanilla or coffee flavor out of it, you're going to get a cigar that tastes like a cigar, but it's harsh. It's almost like something like what you're smoking, like kind of a full flavor, but not quite, because it's not refined tobacco. But what they do is they put that vanilla in it because it's not going to say trash, but it's essentially trash tobacco that they wouldn't put in any of their premium stuff. And they put it in that so that it mellows it out and it makes an attractive flavor for you, because I don't think hardly anybody on earth would not eat vanilla. I think most people, that's a very common flavor people
Right,
like.
right.
And coffee is kind of in that teeter-totter state as well. Most people like coffee, some people don't. But when you taste that vanilla, because I'm the same way. I can't say that I didn't start that way either, but I started with something harsh, but when I was smoking a lot, I started off with vanilla.
Vanilla, yeah.
And it was such a good, refreshing flavor, and the retro health of a vanilla cigar it's still actually palatable for me. I still like it, but the thing is that sometimes it's overly sugared. So that's the problem. If you get raw, natural vanilla in this natural state in a cigar, it's good. I mean, I think a lot of people would still like it as long as it's not overly concentrated.
If it's a good high quality cigar and it's vanilla, it's still going to be good. I'm just saying I wouldn't necessarily go out and buy a vanilla cigar
exactly.
anymore, but I'm sure if I smoked it, I would enjoy it.
Yeah. And you mentioned bourbon earlier. What types of bourbon do you enjoy? Do you have some favorite brands? What do you keep at home?
A little bit of everything.
Okay.
A little bit of everything. Angel's Envy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's good stuff.
My most recent favorite has been the Four Roses small batch.
Yeah.
Not the regular Four Roses, but the Four Roses small batch is one of my recent favorites. A very, I won't say unusual, but a bourbon that's not very common around here that they do have here at Executive Cigar Club is Garrison Brothers.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
Right. Now, I lived in Dallas, Texas for many years, and so I was familiar with Garrison, and when I came in here, I was surprised that they had it, because you don't see it in a lot of places, and Garrison Brothers is fantastic.
It is.
But I drink everything from Knob Creek to, I guess Jack Daniels, which technically is, whiskey. Jack Daniels is really my go-to as a whiskey, but bourbons, there's a whole bunch that I like.
Sheriff Force, what would you pair this with?
What I don't like, I'm sorry, Levy, I'll tell you. It's
Go
easier
ahead.
to say what I don't like. For some reason, I don't like Members Mark. I'm not a big Members Mark person.
You know what? I'm the exact same way.
Love Knob Creek, love.
But yeah,
Reserve.
Makers it's just one of those that I don't know
It's
why,
got some kind of flavor
but
to it.
my palate does not accept it at all. And it doesn't matter. And everybody's like, oh, that's because you drink, the regular lower tier. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Makers 46, all of them. I'm just, it's
Right.
not.
Every time you tell somebody you don't like Makers, they say, get the Makers 46.
And I'm like,
I got the Makers
got it.
46.
It's cowboy whiskey to me more than anything.
Yeah,
More so
it's
cowboy
not,
whiskey.
and not to knock it, because a lot of people like it.
Right.
But for me and my palate, and the same thing and that's why I say cigar smoking is truly an objective thing, because it doesn't matter what you think about a cigar, because you may say, oh, that's the best cigar in the world. I might smoke it and be like, I don't get anything out of it, and vice versa. And so I tell people, you can't get mad at people because they don't like the same whiskey you like or bourbon you like or cigars. Like, be happy because at the end of the day, if they don't like it, that's more for you to buy. So, and that's the way I look at it. I'm like, oh, you don't like it? Perfect. I can buy this whole box of cigars right now.
Right, right.
So it's good to have that balance. I mean, and it goes without saying with the three of us, we do have some common interests. As far as cigars are, as far as spirits are concerned, but we also each like something that neither one of the other two likes or loves it, or we each detest something that the other two are like, oh man, no, that's great.
And that's the beauty of having a sophisticated cigar palate. So absolutely.
And having friends that don't just read magazines.
So
Yes.
what's your go-to bourbon? Are you a bourbon guy?
I like the Garrison Brothers. Matter of fact, I wish you'd had been familiar with Executive. At one point, they had their own barrel. They had a Garrison barrel. So.
Oh I think they told. And actually, I just had the Yellowstone.
Oh,
Yeah, they had
man.
Yellowstone event here too.
Right,
Matter
right.
of fact,
That old fashioned made with that Yellowstone.
phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I'm an expert by any means, but I've had a lot of different bourbon,
Yeah.
over the course of a lot of years. And until last week, I had never had or even heard of Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's part of one of the variations from the Bean family. So we had the event here. Stephen Bean himself was here, so we each have some signed bottles from Stephen Bean.
Yeah.
The variation of Beam that I really like is Booker.
Mm.
I don't ever drink Jim Beam.
Booker's
the
good.
variation of
Booker
Beam
is
that I
good.
really
Yeah.
like is Booker. That will knock you on your ass.
The Booker is actually kind of hard to come by too. I haven't seen very much of it.
Me either.
Booker?
Yeah, Booker.
Oh, they have it around. It's around. They have it around.
You got to know where to go, buddy.
Yeah, I haven't
But I
seen
mean,
it very often.
it's like 130 proof, I think. I mean, that'll really set you back.
But it's worth it. It's one of those drinks that
Oh yeah, no, I don't
it's,
mean
it's,
I
it's,
don't mean the money.
no, no,
I
yeah,
mean
the proofing, yeah. But it's one of those things I tell people like I have a lot of overproof.
It's one of those that'll sneak up.
Yeah,
on you, I
and I'm
should
like,
say.
and they're like, oh no, give me a double, and I'm like, no,
Right.
take a single, sip it, and sit back and relax. This is not like this is sipping liquor. This is not. Oh, let me mix it with Coke or mix it with ginger ale and chug it down. Like no.
That'd be a mortal sin.
Oh yeah.
If you mix Booker with something.
And my friends ask me all the time because they come over the house and I have two shelves on my wall and then I have the whole liquor cabinet. And so most of my like overproof is on the wall and they're like, oh, can I get some of that? And I'm like, you're not ready. And they take offense to it. And I'm like, no, seriously, you're not. Because if you're still mixing your drinks,
Right.
like you're not ready for the flavor that you're gonna get. It's gonna be so strong to you that you're gonna want to dumb it down with ice or Coke or ginger ale, and that's not the way. It's not made for that. It's not. I keep telling them, like it's not drinking whiskey. It's not drinking bourbon. Like it's not. It's sipping.
Even in Angel's Envy, I've seen people mix Angel's Envy. with
Sacrilege.
soda or
Sacrilege.
something. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, you're ruining it.
Just slap them. Just slap them. Do them a favor.
No, you see, you have to threaten them. You can't slap them. The assault charge is way easier to get out of than the battery charge.
Good point. Good point.
So make sure, hands
Open
off.
hand.
If you open hand smack somebody, if somebody open hand smack me, I think I would go to civil court and sue them. Because I would like my manhood would definitely be tested at that point. Like if you open hand smack me,
It's just hard enough where it doesn't seem like an assault. It just seems like
it's just like straight disrespect. It's like man.
slap him with a glove.
Now,
Challenge him to a
Oh,
duel.
you should slap me with a glove. I'm coming out dueling definitely. But
dueling, old school. All right, so which is worse, the forehand slap or the pimp slap, the backhand slap?
the backhand slap is definitely worse.
That means you didn't work shit.
I mean because the reason I say that is the forehand you see coming. But it's a forehand. But the backhand, like, not only do you see it coming, but you know it's coming. Like a forehand slap, you're just like, oh, maybe he's just doing a gesture. But a backhand, like if they cock that hand all the way back here past their shoulder and their head, and they bring it forward like a golf swing, like at that point, I mean, we're gonna fight.
That's
Right.
attempted
It
murder.
has a lot more velocity.
Yeah.
Plus
That's
knuckles.
attempted murder.
Yeah,
That's right.
I don't know that I've ever been slapped anyway, other than from a woman. I don't think a man has ever slapped me.
yeah. That's I don't know, man.
as far as like drinks, I like bourbon, but
He likes gin.
I'm not really. I'm not one of those guys that's really heavy into bourbon. I really am not. I like bourbon, but the problem that I often find is that you get to a tier and they're all really good, but they're all very hard to distinguish between the two. And I find that to be not that there isn't any difference, but it's so closely that it's
There's
like
subtle
there's
differences.
subtle differences.
Yeah.
Personally, if I were going to drink a bottle and it was a bottle that I really wanted to sit and drink, it's going to probably be Pinhook. I'm a humongous Pinhook fan. Um,
Oh yeah, you put me onto that. I like that
it's,
as well.
It's phenomenal, and it's not even an expensive bottle for it. It's a $40-something bottle, and it's always consistent. The only thing I will tell people about buying Pinhook is when you first open that bottle, the first two pours you pour to me are trash. Like to the point that the second time I bought a bottle, I almost threw the bottle away because it was just not good. It tasted tainted, and it just was too not strong, but it was strong going nowhere.
You're saying you have to drink some of it to get the good
No,
part?
I think what it is I think the air combining with it. It's been sealed, and once that air gets to it, it's just like, yeah, it don't taste that great. It tastes okay. It's not. I mean, to say I was gonna throw it away is being hyperbolic, but it didn't taste that great.
Maybe you have to aerate it a little bit.
And
like
the aerates
wine.
it,
Yeah.
kind of like a red wine. There's some red wines that are phenomenal red wines, but when you first drink it, it ain't gonna be
Right,
great
you
if
have
it
to
doesn't
open
aerate.
the bottle and let it sit for a while.
Mhm.
Maybe you do the same thing with bourbon.
But it takes a little bit. It takes a little bit of time. I think usually once you pour the first drink, let it sit for a day, not open, but just let it sit. And that air gets into it, and it just kind of mellows itself back out, and it's pretty good. I mean, it's one of those bourbons I drink a lot of. I'm
I'll
Elijah
gladly
Craig fan.
try it out. Pinhook.
Yeah, Trap Pinhook. It comes in. It looks like a wine bottle. It's a clear bottle. It's named after horses, race horses. The one I drink is the Bermuda. It's a really good. It's like a pinkish orange looking top. Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
it's
Yeah.
really good. It has a really interesting taste to it. Mitchers. I
Hmm.
love Mitchers. The Kentucky Straight is really good.
Your monkey shoulder.
Monkey Shoulder.
I love Monkey Shoulder.
I got a love-hate relationship with Monkey Shoulder. I haven't bought any in a while, so it doesn't call me when I go to the liquor store anymore. So I like Elijah Craig, small batch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
That's
Yeah,
really
I was gonna
good.
say,
To me-
I'm more of a traditionalist because there's so, the bourbon market has exploded. You go into the store, there's 30 different kinds of bourbon.
Yeah.
Or more. So.
But it just needs. The thing is that there's a lot of school bourbons out there that a lot of people they drink bourbon, but they haven't even had the old school stuff. And to me, you can't know how good something should taste until you have the fundamental stuff.
Right.
And Elijah Craig is one of those grandfather bourbons that have been out there forever. And if you haven't had any, you kind of don't even know what you're comparing everything else to, in my opinion. So that Mitchers, I love Bro Brothers. To me, I would. The funny thing is about Bro Brothers, I would call it a bourbon because by its classification it is a bourbon. But to me, I would say if you drink Jack, just get Bro Brothers because
it's more of a whiskey.
More of a whiskey, but it has enough to say it is a bourbon. But it really is a really good whiskey, and it goes really well. To me, I've told people that I know it's a small brand, it isn't got all this notoriety, but it's one of those brands. And it's not because of who makes it. It's ultimately a good bourbon. It tastes really good, and it's one of those that is priced at such a low price. You could mix it and not feel like it's blasphemy. It's not a big deal, and it tastes good by itself. It tastes really good with Coke. It tastes really good with any other thing that you mix it with. You do a highball with some ginger ale, and it's got a good flavor to it. But me, I've always been more on the cognac side. I just kind of grew up with OGs drinking cognac. So I just figured that I would be that guy, and I started drinking cognac fairly early. I have uncles that drink it, and I've always been a big fan. I'm a Martell or a 1738 guy. But to be honest with you, my drinks of choice most of the time are going to be a gin. I'm a gin guy. I'm one of those, not weird now because it's kind of a thing now. Everybody drinks it, but I love gin. It could be dry, it can be floral. I like them all equally. But if I'm going to sit and smoke a cigar, I would actually prefer not to drink alcohol. I'd rather actually drink coffee or Mexican Coke. To me, I think it feels that palate just right for me to be able to enjoy the cigar, and it's a good time. I'll sit there. We were talking. I was with Jerry the other day.
Oh,
and
TC's in the house.
man, I ain't seen this guy in forever. I didn't even know he was still
Gin,
alive.
gin is the one thing I do not drink. I mean, whiskey.
You brought us
like I
lunch?
said, I'm
You
essentially
brought us
a
lunch?
Jack
I didn't know y'all
Daniels
was still
guy,
here, man.
Every
I'll
Saturday,
go
bro.
up the ladder on Jack Daniels to
It's 1:30.
but
I haven't been here so long, man.
wide variety of bourbons. If I'm not drinking whiskey or bourbon, I'll drink vodka, but I just do not drink gin.
Yeah, and it is not for everybody. It is definitely not a drink for everybody. I like it more so, and I've gotten into it more here because it's hot. And to me, bourbon and heat don't go together. I was having this conversation with my wife in the car. I realize why when I see people sitting or we're sitting and they're drinking bourbon and I'm drinking gin, I know why, because I can put ice in the gin,
Right.
tonic water, and be
Right.
fine, because it's such a refreshing drink. I can sit and drink that all day, and it won't bother me or make me feel tired or sluggish or anything like that. But I'm really not much into as much drinking alcohol with cigars. It's just something I've kind of always been like. I was at Admiral's the other day with Jerry, and I forget the gentleman's name that I was with Jerry that does real estate, and me and him were talking, and we were talking about cigars on the Ave moving, and I was like, honestly, when we were sitting and talking about drinking with cigars, I was like, honestly, if I'm sitting in this bar, you could clean the whole bar out and just give me coffee and Coke, and I'm good, and because that's what I'm gonna sit and smoke. That's why I'm gonna sit and drink while I'm smoking, because I prefer the taste. And I think that Coke is such a familiar flavor, and coffee is such a familiar flavor to me, and it's almost always constant. And I know what the extreme high and extreme low is for them, so I know what the cigar is gonna always taste like. That's one of those things I know I can easily test a cigar, no matter how mild it is or how heavy it is, and I can get everything precise with it with those two because I know how they affect my palate.
Yeah, I'm
And
definitely not going to have a vodka tonic or even a margarita, no matter how good the tequila is, with a cigar.
but I am the guy.
There's that one. Now there's that one tequila that I will say.
No, I'll drink straight tequila with a cigar. But I'm not going to drink
Like
a
a
margarita,
mix,
or a vodka tonic because, like he's saying, it's so hot out, and you can have a vodka tonic or a gin and tonic's really refreshing. But I'm just not going to drink that with a cigar. I'll have a shot of tequila with a cigar, but I'm most likely if I'm doing that, I'm most likely going to have bourbon.
Yeah.
My best times with cigars have been with coffee. The times that I have had the best experience with a cigar and enjoyed it thoroughly,
It's with coffee. Yeah.
I've been sitting on the porch.
That's what I was saying before. It just goes with coffee.
Mhm.
Go back to Cuba, right?
Yeah.
Cigars,
That's
what
it.
you drink, Cuban coffee.
And most of the time it's all black.
Right.
It's black and a little bit of sugar, and I'm good to go. Matter of fact, that cigar that I found out was $1,200 a stick now. When I smoked it, I was drinking coffee, and it probably made it taste phenomenal. At the time, it actually added to the flavor of it. It was just.
Wait, you had a $1,200 cigar?
I did not pay $1,200 for that cigar, but it is now. It last auctioned off. The last box of it auctioned off for $12,000 a box, and it's only 10 in a box. So I was like, that's, and you know what?
That's
Even
Cuban,
that,
though, right? That's
yes, Cuban. That Lagro Cabana, the Spanish, it's
Mhm.
going up there too because
Oh, I
I
know.
just found out, and I don't know why I didn't know this, but I found out that when they do runs for regional areas, those are limited boxes. They
Oh, yeah.
do so many boxes, period, and they never reproduce them anymore.
That's like I was telling you about,
I
like
wish I would have known that. I would have bought. They were at $70-something a box. Remember we were talking about it, and I was like, I'm gonna wait.
that's like the Monte Cristo series when they do the City series, and I had the Las Vegas. The Las Vegas, they only sell in the state of Nevada. You can't get it anywhere else. Same thing with the Monte Cristo New York. You can only get it in the state of New York. You cannot get it anywhere else. So those limited runs, if I try a stick in the shop, I'll sit in the shop and smoke that whole cigar. And if I like it, I'm just going to go back and buy a box of it because I know that more than likely there's a lot of cigar smokers out there like me, and they're going to fully enjoy it, and they're going to do the same thing. So If I run across and I see they got a couple extra boxes, I'll sit in the lounge and smoke it. And if I really, really love it, then I'm just going to buy a box or two of it because I know it's not going to be around for long. But to go with you guys with the bourbon, I'm going to go with one that, well, I have two of my favorites that you guys did not say, so I'm going to talk about them. One, of course, is Blanton's.
Yeah.
And everybody has a love-hate relationship with Blanton's. They either love it or they and I think the reason for the hate is because it's so hard to get, and then the markup at the liquor stores level itself is ridiculous. Um, and one of the newer ones that I've tried, and you know, my good friend Matt runs the distillery, is St. Augustine.
Yes.
I mean, they have truly gotten back to that old school Tennessee style, Kentucky style of bourbon. I mean, it is just, and the crazier part about it is, none of the ingredients are from outside of the state of Florida. So
Homegrown.
they make a true homegrown bourbon in St. Augustine, Florida, and it is phenomenal. And they have a couple different variations. I did crack that bottle of the Saint open, Art.
Oh, did you finally?
Yeah, and it
You
was,
were waiting.
oh yeah, and it was great because for me, when I got the bottle, it had just come out. So at the distillery, it was $110. You go to Total Wine or ABC right now, it's 189 to 210, depending on it. And it's because it's so good. And the best part about it is it's not a limited edition. That's going to be a regular production bottle for them. And it's, to me, it's worth the money because just the experience of sitting down and like watching the process of how it's made and getting walked through the distillery and the history of the guys who bought the ice plant that was, decommissioned and turned it into this modern day, modern age facility that distills. I mean, and even I'm not a gin drinker either. They make a gin, and that gin to me is phenomenal. And the reason is, the master distiller was telling me, he's like, everybody crushes their juniper berries and throws them in to the distillery and to the still, sorry, and they don't. They use the whole juniper, so you get that kind of bitter back aftertaste from gin because the junipers are fresh. It's the same thing when you put out a cigar. When you finish smoking a cigar, you don't like it. The true way to let it go is to just let it rest and go out on its own. When you break a cigar, when you smash it into the ashtray, you're breaking it up, and it releases all of these, all the essential oils get broken up, and it produces a bad smell. It produces like that stale day after cigarette smell, and that's why. So I don't think people really realize that their palate is not just their mouth. Like your palate includes your nasal cavity,
Correct.
and when you
Which
taint
speaks
the
to
nasal
importance
cavity,
of a good retro head.
yeah, absolutely. And I was just saying that because I retrohaled this, and the white pepper that I got coming through my nostrils afterward was just like I felt like I had some pepper sauce, and just, like my forehead started sweating, you know. And I was like, man, this is where it's at.
You have to remember you can only taste sweet, pepper, sweet, spice, and salt with your tongue or your whole mouth.
Right.
So if you're only tasting something with your mouth, you're only tasting like less than 10% of whatever something tastes like.
That's what she said.
So, and if you have a sinus infection, you're not tasting anything. Unfortunately. So if you can't get it through your nasal passage, or it's not falling in there somehow, or you're not sniffing it to a certain extent, I taste what it is. So whatever that cigar maker is doing, you're not doing it. You're missing out on majority of what you're trying to do.
And we've been going for 59 minutes now, and I'm only halfway through the cigar, which speaks volumes about the way it's blended because
And constructive.
I'm a cigar smoker. Like, I power through cigars. And this is a cigar that I'm like literally resting. Usually my cigar's in my hand the whole entire time I'm smoking. I'm literally letting the cigar rest because I'm trying to truly enjoy all of it because I know it's going away soon. And the flavor complexity, the way the strength just ebbs and flows, You know, it's not just a consistently strong cigar. Like the strength mellows out a little bit, and then you get some more of those floral notes. You get some more of those coffee notes. Um, and the retro is superb to me.
I even pick up a little spice in the retro too,
Mm-hmm.
along with that black pepper. So,
Yeah, that's what I said. I picked up the white pepper in it, and that's the one. Like, I mean, my forehead started beating up a little bit, so I was like, oh, okay, well, you got to slow that down. Can't retrohale too much.
And it actually doesn't burn out. Like
Mm-mm.
I had to relight mine. The only reason why because I let it sit so long. Like tried to let it burn almost out to try to get that taste of barely. That's something I was talking to Courtney about, and she was asking in regards to cigars flavoring and lighting, and she's saying she was new to it. I was like, well, for me, and may not be everybody else's philosophy. To me, when I light a cigar, a lot of times if I really like that cigar and I want to enjoy it, I try to get it just hot enough to catch on fire,
Mm-hmm.
just enough so it actually burns the tobacco.
Because what you want to do is roast the tobacco. You don't want to technically burn it.
Yeah.
You just want to toast and roast that tobacco.
You're gonna get that charred taste to it.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to try to get it to the point where it catches on fire, and that's all you need. But you just want to make sure all of it is burned, or all of it is lit. And as long as it's lit and it has enough fire to smoke it, that's good. As long as you're not, you don't smoke it all the way down, then let it burn out, and there's like kind of charred weirdness to it.
Yeah.
Get that slightly lit aspect of it. Enjoy it from there.
Oh, I want to shout out my father-in-law Mikey and the guys over at the Hilton Vacation Clubs Resorts and I Drive in Sand Lake in Orlando. They are big listeners of the show, and they are also all avid cigar smokers for probably 30, 40 plus years. Um, and I appreciate the listening to the show and giving us comments and feedback. These guys are great. Looking to get them on the show soon
I'll
as
tell you
well.
something. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'll tell you something else. That given that when I was first I got here, I'd been smoking that H up number two, and it transitioned to this. That the fact that it's holding its own says a lot. You know, when you come to something that's classic as a number two, like H up man, you kind of not to say it's the best cigar in the world, but it's kind of that fundamental great cigar construction and flavor for you to be able to transition from something that refined to this.
Absolutely.
It says a lot, and it shows to the power of Nicaragua. Nicaragua has some of the best tobacco. It's pretty much the closest you're going to get to Cuban. You know,
Shout out to Jonathan Drew.
you just can't. When they got into that world of Nicaragua and they tried to make a cigar with it, with that tobacco, it's they've tried to make that taste of Cuba ever since those doors have been closed to us here in the States, and that's the closest thing you can get. It tastes, and it's oftentimes I'm smoking Nicaragua cigars and I feel like I'm smoking a Cuban. It has that same aroma. That's one of the things I do truly like about Davidoff. Even though the price may be whatever it is, it's pretty close. I mean, would you say
Padron too, and
Yeah,
I think
sure.
and to go back to that, I think what the best part of that is, or the reason that it's so close, is that the soil contents of those two countries are very similar. And some people don't know this, but the soil content is what really gives that tobacco its flavor. After then it goes into the aging process. But what is the composition of the soil? That's what you want to look at when you find a cigar you like. You find a maker, and I have friends who, like, oh, I only smoke Nicaraguan cigars, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, but you should open your palate up because, you know, yes, Nicaraguan cigars are so great, but when you look at the soil composition of like Dominican Republic, which that's where my cigars are manufactured, again, it's a palate change. So you may find something that you like from another country that you'd have never tried because you said, oh no, I'm only going to stick with this one country and only the manufacturers that make it out of this country. Which is, I always say, try everything, and I mean it. I mean, what's the worst thing you're going to do? Okay, I don't like this cigar. That's what you'll find out.
That's why I really hope and I pray that one day we get this right in regards to policy or whatever it is. Because I really feel that the day that the U.S. government gets their mindset on how they're going to deal with Puerto Rico and its ability to sell agriculture or products they make out of agriculture, people are going to have their socks blown off because
Oh yes.
Puerto Rico can produce some of the best tobacco.
I mean, they've got every type. They've got mountain ranges. They've got volcanic ash. You know, they've got everything that you need.
That you need to make a fine cigar. And you have to remember, a lot of times people have gone to Puerto Rico and they're always in San Juan, but Puerto Rico, over half of it is jungle.
Yeah.
And you have all that running water coming off of those mountains and that fresh spring water and those canopies that allow what they call natural shade, right?
Mhm.
You know, you don't have something where you got to put a
That
makeshift
Connecticut shade
You
wrapper.
you literally have tobacco that can grow in the jungle, and it has the richest soil. I mean, literally, it's a you ask a old Puerto Rican or somebody who's literally from the island,
Oh, the world's oldest man is here.
and they'll tell you
Thank
straight
you, sir.
up that when it comes to it comes to growing stuff, you throw a seed and it grows.
Yeah.
You throw a seed on the ground and it starts growing immediately because the soil is so rich and they have so much moisture that they create from the rain and all of that. Because I remember when I first went to Puerto Rico and I smoked cigars from there, I was like, oh, it's pretty good. But then you realize that there was a long-standing culture for them to grow it. And the only reason why they stopped growing it because Puerto Rico's agriculture has always been based on what's popular.
Mhm.
When they couldn't grow tobacco, when they couldn't sell tobacco, they stopped growing it and they grow anything else. But to me, whenever they open, I hope and I would like to think one day if that happens, I could be in that forefront of being maybe a grower or getting into that environment because I told my wife, I was like, this is perfect. This could be cigar country easily.
Oh yeah, it is cigar country.
You
It
can
is.
grow some good stuff.
We need to talk to Wendell about that because, as you know, he still has land there.
Yeah.
So there you go. You got
And
a
then
shot.
and you've got like you go in. As speaking of San Juan, like you go into San Juan and Old San Juan, and you'll have guys on the corners on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays, and they're selling the tobacco that they've grown on their farms and that they've rolled for cigar smokers. And I've had some really really good cigars,
Just sitting out there on
and
the streets.
it's not like they don't have a family name, they don't have
No bands.
no band, they don't have any branding. It's just this is from my farm, and even the fresh rolls that they make out there in front of you, like very very high quality tobacco. And as you said, like I'm definitely looking forward to that point where they can mass produce and manufacture cigars to the point where we are able to purchase them here.
Most definitely. Because if you ever do go, don't be shy to buy something from those guys that are on the street in Old San Juan. Those are good cigars. Don't be fooled. Those are really good cigars. Granted, you're gonna go to what's the bigger shop? That big shop in downtown San Juan. That place
Rita's
is nice.
Rita's Tobacco.
It's a very good shop.
It's a beautiful shop.
But the thing is that there's so much that they have there that, well, not so much, but there's stuff that they have there that is really good, and it can compete in this market that we have now.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I'm still holding on to that one because the one that I bought from that farm, it's got good tobacco. The construction is but the flavoring was pretty good for it to have been something that hasn't been through the proper process of aging and all that. So I've been sitting there looking at it and just like, okay, one day I'm gonna smoke this because it needs time. It needs time to sit inside of a humidor and do its thing. It was a good.
And I think also when you look at that, the cigars are inexpensive at that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I've paid over $10 for a Puerto Rican hand roll, or from the Puerto Rican tobacco. I don't think I've honestly paid over $10 for a cigar, and I have truly enjoyed everything that I've smoked out of Puerto Rico, everything. So if you're going there on vacation or you have family there, like pick some stuff up and bring it back. It is,
Sure.
yeah. Please do share. Please do share.
Take us home.
Even though I smoked the one that
I'm
you
going
got
to
yesterday.
Puerto Rico in a few months for a wedding, so
All right, yeah, that's what's up.
I'll bring some back for you.
Most definitely.
Please.
Well, this is a Cigar Snob alongside Chair 4 Steve, Sir Shirts and Shoes, Max from Comcast.
And Tony from WBO, thank you again for dropping in.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. You guys do a fantastic job and great information.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is Cigar Snob signing out. I'm going to still be here smoking cigars and drinking, so feel free to stop by Executive Cigar Lounge in Sanford on Seminole Boulevard, across from the water. It's a nice day, not too overcast. So come join us. It ain't that hot.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, happy birthday.
And always remember, life's too short to smoke a shitty cigar, and always aim center mass.